Months before she vanished, Lynette sent a frantic private text warning her closest friends that Brian's anger had become unhinged, and she was terrified to be trapped alone at sea with him. This changes everything from a tragic accident to something cold and calculated.
Captain, how many people on board? How many people on board? Okay, any weapons on board? Okay, do not reach for them. All right. Nobody down below?
Nobody's down below.
No weapons? All right. You guys headed to St. Augustine?
No, we're heading up to Fernandina Beach.
Okay.
For the owner.
Yeah, is he going to meet you there?
I don't think so, no.
So right now the boat's being seized?
Oh, shit.
Yep.
An important development in the search for a Michigan woman in the Bahamas. You remember this story. It could shake up her husband's story that she fell overboard during a boat trip back in April. So a source tells CBS News the GPS data does not match the boat's reported movements that day.
This morning, sources say the Coast Guard is preparing to send divers to search new areas of the Bahamas for Lynette Hooker, the Michigan woman missing since early April. Her husband, Brian, told authorities she fell off their dinghy during a storm as they were returning to their sailboat. He described the moment to our Victor Okendo.
The wind blew us apart so fast that I think she tried to swim back to the sailboat, back to our sailboat.
But now officials claim GPS data recovered from Brian's electronic devices does not match what he told investigators, and that's prompted them to launch a new search.
He said the boat was drifting helplessly through the dark. He said the wind was howling. He said he couldn't see her. He said he tried. But digital evidence now suggests something else entirely. Because according to investigators, that boat may not have been drifting at all. Data obtained through marine tracking company Vessel Finder shows the Soulmate's automatic identification system, the AIS, which broadcasts a vessel's identity, speed, and position, went dark at 9:29 p.m. on April 4 and did not resume until 8:40 a.m. the following morning, a blackout of more than 11 hours. And now, GPS data derived from one of Brian Hooker's electronic devices shows a track of the device's movements that does not align with what he told investigators. At first, investigators thought they were searching in the right place. Now, Hooker's account caused investigators to search in the wrong area of the Sea of Abaco while they were looking for Lynette, 55, the official said. That single sentence may be the most important line in this entire case. Because it doesn't just mean they missed something, it means someone may have pointed them in the wrong direction. On this episode, I will walk you through GPS contradictions, a $33,000 thermal camera that was never turned on, an 11-hour blackout on a boat's tracking system, FBI forensics at Quantico, DNA requests from the family, and federal divers now approved to search 25-foot deep Bahamian waters that were never searched before. But here's the thing. Every one of those details raises another question, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why investigators may now be seeing a very different picture than the story they were originally told. If you're following this case closely, subscribe now, because what's happening this week could change everything. For weeks, investigators stayed quiet. The Coast Guard Investigative Service processed the boat, the FBI worked behind closed doors, the family waited. Now we know why. Newly obtained GPS data in the case of Lynette Hooker's disappearance has prompted U.S. investigators to relaunch a search for the body of the missing Michigan woman. But investigators now believe they have independent forensic data that undercuts that version of events, pointing them instead to a different search area. Let me show you what that means. Authorities obtained data from Brian Hooker's phone, specifically GPS data from a marine navigation app that was used while the couple was on the dinghy. A marine navigation app running on his phone on the dinghy the night she disappeared. That app was recording. The GPS data derived from one of Brian Hooker's electronic devices showed a track of the device's movements that does not align with what he told investigators. The newly obtained data shows the device was out on the water, stopping in the Sea of Abaco before returning. Think about what that means. The device didn't just drift aimlessly for 8 hours the way Brian described. According to the data, it stopped somewhere specific, and then it came back. Brian Hooker told authorities they left Hope Town around 7:30 p.m. He told them Lynette fell overboard shortly after. He said strong currents carried her away and that she had the boat's keys, causing its engine to shut off and forcing him to paddle ashore. He paddled, he said, for hours, helpless, powerless, alone in the dark. Hooker told Bahamian authorities that his wife fell out of their 8-foot dinghy with the key to the engine on the evening of April 4 as they were traveling from Hope Town to Elbow Key. He said he paddled the vessel to shore, arriving around 4 a.m. April 5 at Marsh Harbor Boat Yard, where he told someone what had happened. That person then informed police. That was the story for weeks. But the GPS data tells a different story. The device moved with purpose, it stopped at a location, and then it returned. And here's the part investigators can't ignore. Investigators were searching in the wrong area of the Sea of Abaco based on the information Brian Hooker gave them. He didn't just get confused about where he was. According to investigators, he actively directed them somewhere else. Brian Hooker shared maps he said showed the dinghy's route and the location where Lynette Hooker went overboard. But investigators now believe they have independent forensic data that undercuts that version of events. He drew maps, he handed them to police, and the data says those maps don't match where his phone actually was. That's not a misunderstanding, that's a contradiction that changes everything about this investigation. And then investigators noticed something else, something that should have been impossible. A maritime law expert said, if the AIS had stopped altogether and never came back on, then you would assume there was some sort of catastrophic failure on the system. But when it went off and then came back on some hours later, that's an action whereby the system was turned off or disabled. The tracking system didn't malfunction, it was switched off, and then it was switched back on. Notably, there were 3 more instances from April 10 to 13 where the AIS wasn't transmitting data. The signal moved twice, then it went dark, then it came back 3 more times. And the question investigators are asking now is straightforward. If the boat was sitting at anchor with nobody aboard, who turned off the AIS? Before we go further, you need to understand what was sitting on top of that sailboat the entire time. CBS News has learned the sailboat used by Brian and Lynette Hooker in their travels around the Bahamas had an infrared camera capable of detecting heat radiation. The camera aboard their boat, made by technology company FLIR, can also operate with a cloud memory system, which could hold key evidence in the search for Lynette Hooker. A $33,000 thermal imaging system, mounted on the yacht they called home. Daniel Danforth, who's friends with the couple, told Fox News Digital that the couple's boat Soulmate contains a thermal camera that Brian Hooker could have used to help search for his wife. One of the neat features that they had on their boat that most boats don't have is called a FLIR system, and it's a forward-looking infrared. And what it is, a camera system that's not only night vision, but it's also thermally operated that it can pick up heat signatures. Not just night vision, thermal tracking. This camera can find a human body in total darkness based purely on heat. Danforth said he met the Hookers in 2023 while they were in New Orleans and recalled an interaction with Brian Hooker when he said the thermal camera system kept them safe. Brian told him, "Don't worry while we're on the dock, we're gonna be completely safe. This thing has auto-detect that you can set the temperature." As an example, he set the temperatures on it to 86 degrees. Well, then you can see my wife walking down the dock and the camera automatically started tracking her going back to our boat just because it was strictly off the heat signature. Brian Hooker showed this system off. He was proud of it. He demonstrated how it could track a person walking down a dock in the dark, automatically, based on body heat alone. And the night his wife went into the water. A friend of Brian Hooker says the husband of a missing American woman had a $33,000 high-tech thermal camera on his boat that night and never used it. Never activated it, never told authorities about it. Danforth told the Coast Guard about it and they were very interested. That was the first they had heard about that system being on the boat. And so they told me that they were going to file for a warrant of seizure for that because it has a serial number, Danforth said, adding they might be able to recover data from the camera. The Coast Guard didn't know it was there until a friend told them. The husband never mentioned it. Danforth, who lives on a sailboat with his wife, said the camera system would have been my first choice, like if I was trying to rescue somebody. Your wife is in the water, in the dark. You have a camera on your boat that can detect a human heat signature from hundreds of yards away, and you don't use it, you don't mention it, you don't tell the police about it. The camera was aboard their sailboat, the Soulmate, when it was seized by the U.S. Coast Guard earlier this month. While it is not known if Brian Hooker used the camera, it is currently being processed as part of the ongoing probe, according to sources. And because the FLIR system operates with a cloud memory system, investigators may be able to determine whether the camera was active that night, whether it recorded anything, whether it was deliberately left off. But there's something else Danforth revealed, something Brian Hooker told him in a text message 2 days after Lynette vanished. In a text message sent to Danforth on April 6, Brian Hooker said Lynette swam towards the sailboat after she fell off. Swam toward the sailboat. He told police she was swept away by currents. He told the public she vanished in the dark, but he told his friend she swam toward Soulmate. If Lynette swam toward the boat, the question becomes simple: did she make it? And if she made it, what happened on that boat? That's the question the FLIR camera may answer. That's the question the AIS Blackout may answer. And that's the question investigators are now sending divers to the bottom of the Sea of Abaco to answer. Everything is moving now, and it's moving fast. The Bahamas has granted the Coast Guard Investigative Service permission to send in U.S. divers to search new areas in the case of Lynette Hooker. Forensic evidence recovered from the electronic devices of Lynette Hooker's husband, Brian Hooker, have led investigators to new areas of interest that were previously not searched, according to U.S. officials. A source in the Bahamas told Fox News Digital that the new search will focus on an area of the Sea of Abaco with waters reaching 25-foot depths. 25 feet, that's deep enough to hide something, but shallow enough to find it. The renewed efforts are based on GPS data from Brian Hooker's phone, in which he was using a marine navigation app. The Hooker's dinghy allegedly visited the same area, a U.S. official confirmed. The dinghy went to that location, the phone confirms it, but Brian Hooker never told anyone about that stop. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a different kind of search has been underway. The FBI is processing evidence at its facility in Quantico, Virginia. Quantico, that's the FBI's primary forensic laboratory, the same facility that processes evidence in the most complex federal criminal cases in the country. Coast Guard investigators have also asked family members of Lynette Hooker to provide their DNA to assist in their investigation. Lynette's daughter, Carly Aylesworth, told NBC News that she provided DNA to the Coast Guard on Wednesday to aid its investigation into her mother's disappearance. When investigators ask the victim's family for DNA, they're usually trying to match something they've already found, something biological, something that needs confirmation. Family members of Lynette Hooker confirmed they have provided DNA samples to aid in the investigation. And the boat itself has been moved. The Hooker's boat, Soulmate, has been moved from Fort Pierce to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because authorities did not have the capability to pull it from the water in Fort Pierce. They moved it because they need to haul it out of the water. They need to see the hull, the bottom, whatever's underneath, whatever might be below the waterline. The Coast Guard said the seizure was part of a complex surveillance and interdiction operation. Complex surveillance? Interdiction, those words don't describe an accident investigation, they describe a criminal operation. And Lynette's mother, Darlene Hamlet, said authorities have not kept her up to date on the investigation, and she has not talked to Brian Hooker. Her daughter is gone, her son-in-law is silent, the investigators aren't calling. She's waiting in the dark, just like everyone else. But the data isn't waiting. And what happened next pulled one more thread from the story Brian Hooker told the world. Blaine Stevenson released a recording of a phone call with Brian Hooker after his wife's disappearance. Stevenson said he began recording to keep track of what Brian Hooker was saying to help with search efforts. He was all over the place in the recording and I was getting confused, that's why I started recording. All over the place, confused, contradicting himself. And that call is now in the hands of investigators. Here's where you need to slow down and look at the pattern, because this isn't just one inconsistency, it's a cascade. Brian Hooker told police rough weather caused the accident. Mo Monstein, a local boat charter captain on Elbow Key with 15 years of experience, told Fox News Digital it's hard for him to imagine a scenario where she isn't found. Not being found, that's the mystery. It is very hard to disappear because again we're so close to land. So if you do fall overboard and drown, somebody will see you the next day. Again, we can see bottom. I'll be driving the boat, I will see stingrays, I will see turtles, so I would see a human body. Somebody would see something, he added. It's very hard to disappear by accident. It's very hard to disappear by accident. A captain who spent 15 years in those waters said that. Brian Hooker told investigators one location. His phone's GPS shows a different location. He told police she was swept away by currents. He told a friend she swam toward the sailboat. He said the conditions were dangerous. Local captains describe calm, shallow, crystal clear water. He had a $33,000 thermal camera that could track human heat in total darkness. He didn't use it. He didn't mention it. He told reporters on April 14 that he would stay in the Bahamas. Brian Hooker told ABC News that he was staying in the Bahamas with a sole focus of finding his wife. But hours after that interview, Brian Hooker left the Bahamas, with his attorney saying he wanted to be with his terminally ill mother. Hours, he made that promise on camera and broke it within hours. Aylesworth also said that Brian Hooker sounded monotone and relaxed during a voicemail that he left her, in which he told her that authorities had located a flotation device he had thrown to Lynette before her disappearance. Monotone, relaxed, telling his stepdaughter they found the flotation device but not the person. In an interview with News Nation's Brian and Tin, the couple's daughter Carly Hooker said she was aware of threats her father allegedly made years earlier that mirrored the circumstances of her mother's disappearance. He's threatened it, I'm pretty sure, multiple times. He's done actions to her that have hurt her. The fact that this is happening now is kind of coincidental. It's just funny because he said he was going to do this and now it's happening. Carly Hooker also recounted an incident years earlier when her mother said Brian Hooker choked her and threatened to kill her and throw her overboard. Threatened to throw her overboard, years before it allegedly happened. Brian Hooker's attorney has denied those claims. His lawyer said, Mr. Hooker categorically and unequivocally denies any wrongdoing. But investigators aren't looking at words anymore, they're looking at data, and the data is telling a different story. Aylesworth previously told NBC News that her mother and Hooker had a history of not getting along, especially when they drink. In 2015, Lynette was arrested on charges of assault and battery. A Michigan police report from that night said she and her husband accused each other of assault. The warrant was denied for insufficient evidence as to who started the assault. That was 2015, 11 years before Lynette vanished on the water. If investigators are right about what the GPS shows, then this may not have been an accident at all. It may have been something else entirely. The machine is running now, and there's no stopping it. The Coast Guard Investigative Service probe into the disappearance of Michigan mother Lynette Hooker has intensified in recent days. The U.S. Coast Guard confirmed that special agents with the CGIS seized the Soulmate about 40 nautical miles off Melbourne, Florida, as part of an ongoing criminal investigation. Investigators are also reportedly working to extract data from devices aboard the vessel, including an infrared camera that may contain additional clues surrounding Lynette Hooker's disappearance. Every device, every camera, every app, every log, it's all being pulled apart. Additional evidence in the case continues to be processed at the FBI's lab in Quantico. Federal investigators have also been seeking to identify the owners or occupants of a sailboat that may have been moored next to the Soulmate in Aunt Pat's Bay on the night that Lynette Hooker disappeared. Investigators believe they may have information critical to the case. There was another boat right next to Soulmate that night, and the people on it haven't been found yet. If they heard something, if they saw something, if their cameras caught something, this case breaks wide open. A maritime attorney told Newsweek that Hooker could be charged even if he remains in the U.S. If additional evidence does come to light, then Hooker could certainly be arrested and charged in the U.S., said Michael Winkleman. The boat itself could hold clues like blood or evidence of a struggle. Hooker was arrested in connection with Lynette's disappearance on April 8 and released 5 days later without being charged. At the time, Royal Bahamas Police Commissioner Shanta Knowles said he would remain a suspect. He remains a suspect. In the Bahamas, while the FBI processes evidence at Quantico, while the Coast Guard sends divers into 25-foot waters, while his own GPS data points to places he never told anyone about. The latest development marks one of the most significant turns yet in the investigation into Lynette Hooker's disappearance, raising new questions about Brian Hooker's account of what happened on April 4, the night his wife vanished. And in the middle of all of it, a daughter waits. Carly Aylesworth said in a Mother's Day video message, "It's the first Mother Day without my mom. It's pretty hard right now to know that she's not a text away anymore. She can't call her mother, she can't text her, she can't ask her what happened that night. All she can do is wait for the people processing the evidence to finish." Aylesworth told CBS News, "For one, I don't understand how she got the key. Brian's always driving, so he basically is in charge of the key. The simplest question in this entire case, and nobody has answered it. Brian Hooker has not been charged with a crime. Brian Hooker has denied any wrongdoing and has not been charged with any crime. But investigators may now be seeing a very different picture than the one they were given. And tonight, somewhere beneath the Sea of Abaco, federal divers are preparing to search coordinates that Brian Hooker never mentioned, coordinates his own phone recorded, coordinates that may hold the final answer. Because somewhere beneath that water, investigators believe the truth may still be waiting. And when that answer comes, this case changes forever. If you're following this investigation closely, subscribe now, because this story is moving fast, and we are just getting started.